Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to another episode here on Gladiator Disc Golf. Today's video is part 2 to our series, learning how to play a new course. If you haven't seen part 1, I'll leave the tag right up here for you. Make sure you watch that after this. The 3 tips that we're going to be talking about in today's video are this. Tip number 4 is to walk the hole and find the basket. Don't ever throw a blind shot on a brand new course. Tip number 5 is to stick to what you know. Don't try something outlandish like a Simon line, okay, if you know that you typically can't throw that shot, because on a brand new course, you're going to run into a lot of trouble. And then tip number 6, pay attention to the weather. I know today is a bright and beautiful sunny day, but there's quite a bit of wind here. And the worst part about the wind is that it's not consistent. So I'm constantly having to gauge the wind. So here we are on hole 10. It's a par 3, 429 foot hole. Pretty good hole for a par 3. And if I'm looking at it, sidewalk and to the left is OB, so I have all this open space in front of me. But there are a ton of trees to the left, so I need to figure out where this basket is because the basket is not directly in front of me. I am so happy with that shot. Not only did it go nice and far, but it was on a beautiful straight line, didn't bring any trees into play, and from the looks of it, I'm gonna have a pretty easy approach to the basket. Let's go check it out. So a couple lessons that I need to learn after playing this hole. The first thing is that I needed to come out a little bit further from the tee pad than I originally did to find the basket. Even though I found the basket pretty easily, the guardian trees that I thought were going to be way more in the way are not actually that bad. It actually opens up way more than I thought it would. The second thing is that I need to not pay too much attention to the tee pad signs. While they are super important, the tee pad sign said that this hole was 430 feet. Guys, this hole is not 430 feet. If this hole is 430 feet, that means I just threw an absolute mash of a drive like I've never thrown in my life. And while I would have loved for that to happen, that's not what happened. I threw about a 303, maybe 315 foot shot. It's kind of hard to tell in the open. I'm pretty much in line with the pin. So if I had known that beforehand and come out here a little bit further, I would have definitely played this shot a lot closer to the basket. But this is a practice round. I'm learning the course here. That's the point of these. And so now that I'm learning this course, the next time I come to this hole, I know for certain it's not 430 feet. I need to play this like a little 300, 315 foot shot. Here we are at hole 11. Tee pad sign says 342. UDisc says about 330. Now I can kind of marry those two numbers because we do have a little bit of an uphill shot even though it's wide open. So I'm going to say it probably plays like 340 to 350 even though it may only measure at 330 feet. So tip number 4 doesn't really come into play on this hole. There is no reason for me to really walk the hole and find the basket. I can see it in front of me. But what I want to pay attention to is the slope near the basket. So if I throw something too overstable, once it starts to fade, it might skip down the hill a little bit. And I definitely want to avoid that going from a C1 putt to a C2 or worse. The weather is not too bad. I have a line of trees behind me, so it's pretty still right here. I'm not expecting a lot of wind. And so I need to stick with what I know. And that is definitely throwing a fairway driver on this hole since I'm throwing a little bit uphill. Here's the thing, in a casual round and practice round, there's absolutely nothing wrong with throwing multiple shots, especially if you're prepping for a tournament. You definitely want to make sure that you figure out which shot will work best for you. I didn't park the basket with the eagle, but I am pin high and maybe about 30 to 35 feet away. So I have a super great look for birdie, whereas the drift is right here. And there's an outside chance that I can make this putt, but it's a much higher percentage where I threw the eagle. So we're gonna wrap it up here on hole 13. We have a little 200 foot gap right to the basket. This is a little bit of a tricky hole because we have basically a triple mando 2 times over. We have 2 triple mandos. We have one right off the tee, and then when you get over to the little creek, you do have some branches overhead. And then after that, you're like, okay, we'll just pump something fast, get through the gap. Well, then you have a sidewalk and beyond immediately OB behind it. So I'm certainly going to be taking a putter, throwing this shot, and just trying to throw a nice clean line right at the basket, not think about those OBs. I'm doing what I know I can do within my skill set, which is throw a putter flat and straight. So I feel confident in doing that. There's really no wind to worry about, but the conditions of the hole, that double, that double, triple mando, whatever you want to call it, definitely coming into play here. Perfect, 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 perfect. It nicked a little branch, but slid right up there for a birdie, got pushed down a little bit. I'm just so glad to get the birdie. Alrighty guys, so that's all I have for you today. I hope you remember the 3 tips that we talked about in today's video. Tip number 4 was to walk the hole to find the basket and anything that might be in your way or preventing you from accessing the green. Tip number 5 was to stick to what you know. This kind of is something we already do that we feel confident in, but it's important to think about it, especially if you're considering taking a pretty crazy line. You run a lot of risk of losing a disc when you're at a brand new course because you don't necessarily know where everything is, where all the danger is. And tip number 6 is to pay attention not only to the weather conditions, but the hole conditions and the course conditions as well. It's super important that you pay attention to those things, like if something's gonna skip a lot, or if it's really windy, or if there's some natural triple mandos, or if there is a mando, anything like that. So you wanna make sure you're paying attention to those. And if you haven't watched part 1, make sure you go do that right now. I'll leave the link right up here for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you found this video helpful, make sure you smash that like button. It lets me know that you guys want to see more videos like this. Anyway, that's all I have for you today, guys. Until next time, have a great round.